Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report on I want to welcome back to the show, Luke Goldstein. He is a writing fellow at the American Prospect with a couple of pieces, Luke, that we want to talk to you. Welcome back.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for having me back on.
Let's take them, I guess, in chronological order because I think it was last week, Department of Justice filed a lawsuit to break up LiveNation's monopoly over large parts of the live entertainment industry. It's not just the ticketing. They've sort of they've used that as leverage. I mean, it's almost, it's sort of a prima facie problem with what they're doing with their market power. But walk us through what the problem with LiveNation is.
Yeah. I think that's the right way to set this up. I hardly ever say this, but I actually think Jim Cramer at CNBC actually kind of nailed this. So this was just before.
Luke, it was great to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, so
well, just hear me out.
Before you even go, is it because his daughter wanted tickets to Taylor Swift? I'm literally just going to take a stab in the dark and say that that's the reason he's behind this.
It's not far off. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Well, I'll get to that also, but this was right before the DOJ actually announced that they were filing a lawsuit, but there was already kind of reports it was going to happen. And, he goes on, Mad Money or whatever the show is. And he basically says, I always recommend to investors that you should buy LiveNation stock because they're, quote, the best gouger in the world. So it's pretty just out in the open. I think that's how most people understand what LiveNation and Ticketmaster together. That's a roll up. They merged in 2010. That's what they do. They really just kind of rip off, consumers because they control together over 80% of the ticketing services business. And there have been these huge flare ups in recent years. There was the whole Taylor Swift debacle. There was also a Bruce Springsteen concert where tickets went up to $5,000 or $6,000. Some of that is because they've implemented this dynamic pricing scheme where when there's peak demand, they just jack prices up through an algorithm as high as they can go. Some of that's because they incentivize resale tickets because they get a cut of that also once the prices go higher. So that's what most people associate LiveNation with now. But ticketing services is, as you said, Sam, just one aspect of their business. It's really kind of just the foot in the door for them to roll up the whole live entertainment industry, which includes concert promotion, it's advertising, it's artist management as well, and just direct venue operations like concessions and parking tickets and such. And what they do is they bundle these services together. So if any other players in the business don't want to use that full suite of products, they just cut them out entirely from their ecosystem. And, I mentioned they have 80% of ticket sales, probably their most dominant market position, but they basically have rolled up now most of the major amphitheaters across the US, some worldwide as well. So if you're an artist and you refuse to deal with LiveNation as well, they'll just cut you out from their infrastructure ecosystem, essentially, for if you're going on tour and everything. And, a lot of these kinds of arguments have been made already about LiveNation. What the lawsuit lays out is in very vivid detail how they actually retaliate against any of these players who, basically don't want to play ball with them and, sort of like a mob style.
So the lawsuit lays out both, and we should say there's sort of I guess there's both a monopsony here and a monopoly, right? And depending on how you perceive the talent as to being buyer or seller or whatnot, but the point is they're doing it on both ends. They're doing it with the venues and saying well, if you don't want us to handle your food services and your promotion and this and that, then we're just not going to give you the ticket sales. And who's out there? Are you going to sell these through your own little a event website or something, and then it's the same with the performer. What of their argument that we're jacking up the prices on the tickets? And put aside for a second how they're using their monopoly in ticket sales to leverage and squeeze out competitors on other sort of services provided. What about their argument that we these proceeds of the tickets go to the artists? It's the way that the artists get more money.
Yeah, I mean, there's some vague sort of negotiation that goes on. I mean, the artist will set basically like a floor for what they want prices to be. The thing is that when you're looking at prices on their site, that's not actually what the final prices really are. As most people have probably experienced, you go through the checkout process, and then there are all these various fees that Ticketmaster can, add on for final sale. There's processing fees, there's servicing fees, a bunch of other kind of random ones they throw in there, and they get the major cut essentially of most of those fees for the final sale. So the artists don't really, see a lot of that. And again, if an artist wants to go to a rival ticketing company that's much smaller, granted StubHub or SeatGeek or something, what LiveNation will do is just say, okay, well, you can't use the major venues that we operate and that we have exclusive deals with. And they're actually willing, as the lawsuit has laid out here, they're willing during peak seasons, like in the summer, to let their venues be completely vacant and lose out on the profits they might be able to make, just so that they can, basically enforce, their monopoly power here and make sure that everyone plays ball.
Well, what's the threshold that you get to call something a fee as opposed to it's just the price of what we're charging? I mean, like, I should say, the way we've structured the Majority Report, you can support the show monthly for 50 cents, and there's $9.50 of fees that we have, it's fees. So it doesn't count. Like, I don't understand. Like, how do you get away with that? Yeah,
well, I mean, you get away with it because there aren't really other options that you can go to. So it's not just that LiveNation, I mean, I don't know about your guys' case. I know there's some very lucrative consultants who help figure out what the calculation for fees are at the big companies, at least.
Of course, we hire all of them.
We must have the same consultants.
Yeah, same consultants.
You got to compete. Yeah. So what LiveNation does, though, is they push venues to sign just exclusive contracts with them so that no other ticketing service is allowed. So, theoretically, like, they could have really high fees, but if you can just go to SeatGeek to get a ticket for the same concert at the same venue at that time, then, you might look at their prices, right, and say, okay, that's a better deal. But Ticketmaster has, very, kind of flagrantly tried to kind of block that out. And there have been just another number of instances that are laid out in that lawsuit where this has happened to, I think, a pretty egregious level.
Does the DOJ suggest a remedy? Like, what is the remedy in this situation?
Well, they're actually seeking to break up LiveNation. So this is actually probably a good opportunity to explain a little bit of the backstory here. Sometimes it's civil penalties. In this case, it's actually, I think, pretty clear cut that LiveNation just shouldn't be able to control all these various lines of business. They can be a ticketing service. They can be a concert promoter, which is what LiveNation originally was. They weren't really in the ticketing game. That was Ticketmaster. What happened is in 2010, LiveNation, Ticketmaster, different companies, and they were on opposite ends of a lot of transactions. LiveNation would have to deal with Ticketmaster to decide the recoupment for their artists and venues and such. And, they were kind of, they were at odds on a lot of these deals, as you're kind of supposed to be, right? And LiveNation then set up kind of like a front ticketing service that started to take off just to piss off Ticketmaster and try and compete. And then the two basically came to this detente agreement where they said, this would actually be a lot better for both of us if we just merge together. So their various owners, kind of drew up this merger. And the Obama administration in 2010 had a very different attitude about antitrust enforcement than the Biden administration. And they, essentially cleared it through. I'll add that Ari Emanuel, the, famous Hollywood agent, was an investor in LiveNation at the time. Rahm Emanuel, his brother, was the chief of staff for Obama. So that might have played a role. But the lawsuit that the Biden administration...
Emanuel, no. Hard to believe that he would have been such an enormous scumbag.
Piece of garbage.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's out of character, I know, but
Totally.
you have to consider all the possibilities. So basically, the Biden administration's lawsuit is just kind of trying to rectify, that mistake. There was a consent decree that they added onto it that said, like, please play nice, don't retaliate. And then they very clearly violated the consent decree, so much so that the Trump administration's DOJ actually had to get involved in 2019 and launch an investigation.
Okay,
that didn't work.
So the DOJ wants to break it up horizontally, right? You can't own the ticketing and then also own the promotion and all across the board, because you're leveraging the ticketing and forcing other people. But what about breaking up the ticketing? Like, why do I have to? Why should there be exclusive? What's the value to society that there are exclusive ticketing contracts?
No, I think it just simplifies the process for, probably. I mean, I think really just for LiveNation. They very clearly have coerced venues into doing this. So yeah, you're right. That would be part of the remedy as well. Probably is just to maybe flat out, ban these kinds of exclusive deals. But again, the way that they're able to force these agreements is because they control these other lines of business. So they say, if you don't sign this exclusive deal, you can't access our artists.
Right. And so example. In other words, if I'm a competitor, like I want to start my own Ticketmaster, and I realize that LiveNation does not have the ability to essentially shut down an artist or a venue for the rest of their tour or for this particular show, based upon their ticket the monopoly, then I might enter into that ticket game, because they have no advantage over me now, because their fees are exorbitant.
Right. That's exactly right. And again, this is not hypothetical. There's several cases that are laid out in the DOJ lawsuit. They have obtained internal communications revealing as much. There's another really kind of crazy situation where there was a rival, not just this extends beyond ticketing. There was a rival artist management company called TEG, and TEG wanted their artists to play a tour at the LA Coliseum, which is supposed to have an exclusive deal with LiveNation. And TEG said they would only let their artists play there if they used, I believe it was StubHub. And LiveNation completely freaked out. And they said, because they controlled the venue operations, including like door management, they said, if anyone shows up with a StubHub ticket, we're not letting them in. So eventually StubHub had to cave and say, okay, we will. They basically structured a deal that would have mostly favored Ticketmaster. And then LiveNation didn't stop there. They went to the private equity firm Silver Lake that owns this company TEG, and they have a sort of there's a whole other story here, but they have an arrangement with another company that Silver Lake owns, and they told Silver Lake, you have to basically divest from this company TEG if you want to be on good terms with us. And now they essentially are looking to offload their shares in this company TEG.
I mean, does StubHub even sell tickets that are bought directly, I guess, from the artist or whatever? Because my assessment of things is that Ticketmaster and LiveNation have so monopolized the market that, StubHub's basically a secondary ticket reseller, but that benefits Ticketmaster, LiveNation in and of itself.
Right. Yeah. It definitely depends. I know StubHub has been part of a coalition, that's sort of been, crying foul about a lot of LiveNation's practices. So they definitely have a vested interest there. I think they have been relegated to resale to a certain extent. Other resellers, though, LiveNation through Ticketmaster will actually incentivize to engage in resales, because they also are able to basically get, a cut when the prices just keep getting higher. Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.